Regardless of industry, I think we can all probably agree that ultimately it is the customer that drives the success and profits of an organization. And so, as a result of this, a firm's goods and services really need to be priced in a way that satisfies the consumer needs and value while still being profitable for the organization. Pricing is probably one of the more difficult strategies a corporation faces, as how well they can set a valid price based on value can really impact the success or failure of the corporation. So, in developing a pricing strategy, a corporation really needs to understand what influences value perception, which affects pricing decisions, and then the different types of pricing strategies that are available to them once they understand those factors. So before we go into the factors that affect pricing decisions, there are two terms that I want to discuss with you. First is price. And according to the Encyclopedia Britannica, price is the amount of money that has to be paid in order to acquire a given good. Insofar as the amount that people are prepared to pay for the product represents the value. I really like this definition because it really implies that price is a measure of value, which is hugely important in understanding a good pricing strategy. And the next is pricing strategy, just so you can kind of better understand the topic. And according to businessdictionary.com, pricing strategy focuses their efforts and time collecting data and analyzing data to find the optimal price for their product or service within the given market. So now that we understand the topic a little bit better, what are some of the factors that affect pricing decisions? And there are three main ones. The first one is competition. It's really crucial that a firm understands their competition, what they're offering, their prices and costs, various strategies, and what differentiates you from your competitor. Understanding all of these components can really help bolster and strengthen your strategy and justification for your pricing and value. The next is cost. Costs are obviously a factor because if the price of a product does not cover the costs to make it, the company's profit is going to suffer to the point of potentially going out of business. So it needs to be considered. And then finally, value. Value really helps determine price as a transaction works through this thing called reverse preference of two parties. And Dr. Ritenour goes into this in his book, Foundations of Economics, where he explains that people will buy or sell only when they value the good more that they're receiving than the value they're giving up. I'm not going to give up something I value for something I value less. So these are three things that really need to be considered and taken into account when deciding on what pricing strategy that you want to implement. So now that we've discussed those, what are three pricing strategies that you can potentially implement? The first is customer or demand-oriented strategy. And this strategy is based on prices being set based on the buyer's perceptions of value rather than the seller's cost. And Gary Armstrong goes into this in his book, Marketing and Introduction, explaining that pricing starts with understanding how customers' perceptions of value affect the prices that they're willing to pay for any given product. And so it's really important that the company understands the relationship between price and demand. And this can be achieved in this strategy because instead of pricing a product at a target goal, it first takes the time to assess consumer needs and their value perceptions, analyze what they find, and then set a price based on the demand that they have discovered. So it really is focused on finding that optimal price based on consumer value. The next is cost-oriented strategy, and a cost-oriented strategy is really simple and really straightforward. It is focused on setting prices to cover all the costs that are accumulated during manufacturing and production, distribution, what have you, as well as acquiring an equitable return on profit for the efforts that have been put forth in making their product. However, this strategy does have one main problem, as it completely disregards anything with having to do with consumer value and the relationship between price and demand. It's just solely based on making up cost and a little bit of profit. And then the final pricing strategy that can be implemented is competition-oriented strategy. And this strategy is based on looking at your competitor and setting prices based on their strategies, their costs, prices, and market offerings, taking all of these things into consideration. And a firm should set their prices above their competitors if they have either a better location, a superior product or service, anything that sets them above their competitor, then they should price above their competitor. However, Barry Berman in his book Retail Management explains that setting prices above market price can potentially be hugely detrimental if your product or service is valued less than your competitors. So it's really important to do research before you just go above your competitors. So when deciding to implement the strategy, it's important to answer a couple questions. One, how does your company compare to your competitors in the consumer's value perception of the two? Also, how strong of a competitor are you comparing yourself to? You don't want to compare yourself to a weak competitor. You want to compare yourself to a comparable competitor. And then after that, you can take their pricing strategies and use it as a guide for your own. So today we've talked a little bit about factors that affect pricing decisions, and then various strategies that you can implement. So in the future, if you're ever in a situation where you're developing a pricing strategy, I hope this helps. Thank you.